Historic, Boop. My goodness. It's a huge story. It might be one of the biggest stories in the history of Hollywood, and we're going to experience it together. Thank you for joining me for what's going to be an absolutely mammoth stream. We are for the first time going to have an overall chapters because it's so much to discuss that it's going to be broken down to its own each individual sections. I appreciate so many of you joining me on a Friday afternoon. This news came out of nowhere. Last night I was at a screening for Hoppers when the news broke. We're going to talk about that. Then I had a dentist appointment this morning that I had to go to or they would charge me. So craziness, but I wanted to make sure we had a lot of time to discuss. And that's right, for some reason, I have ridiculously dramatic lighting today. So I was going to make this a stream where the live chat was open to subscribers, but unfortunately I'm dealing with some toxic channels right now. So somebody suggested I might not want to do that. So to make up for it, I'm going to gift some memberships. I usually only gift memberships at the beginning of the week, but I'm going to gift it, also because it's a big deal. Thank you, Dancing Dog 60. And in fact, I'm going to gift 20 memberships. Usually I do 5. I'm going to gift 20, to thank you for your patience and also because of, it's not your fault, so I just wanted to let even more of you in. All right, so let me cook. Look at all those people letting into the chat. I love it. That's right. I made it rain. What am I, an Ellison? Larry's like, Merry Christmas, son, or belated birthday. This is probably, I wonder how many gifts this counts for David Ellison. Do you think his dad's like, you're taken care of forever? I never have to get you another gift again. You're done for Christmas. You're done for your birthdays. This is it. You're welcome. So I just think that that's really funny. Okay, so of course, you can have all your comments as we're going. Thank you, Drago. All your comments can come in. And at the end, as you can see, there is going to be a Q&A. Okay. All right. So much to discuss. Oh, thanks to X-Men Superfan. You're always so generous. And so are you, Dancing Dog. All right. Let's get started because I know there's just so much to go over. And these are the topics I wanted you to know. And if you're not tuning in live, there are chapter times, but this is what we're going to be discussing. Okay. Woohoo. So much to go over. Okay. I broke out a new shirt for it. When I buy a new shirt, I don't want to waste it. When I debut a new shirt, and I was like, what should I wear today? And I thought I'd go with this one. Okay. Let's see here. So, done. Let's see, that's where we're starting. There are going to be 2 arrows for this live stream. Is this a done deal? Okay, let's discuss whether or not this is a done deal. Oh, no, I didn't want to start there. Oh, I got distracted. I'm having such a good time with you guys. I wanted to start with these 2 quotes. Thanks, Bubbles. So Netflix, when they said, no, thank you, they put out a quote that said, this transaction was always a nice to have at the right price, not a must have at any price. Thank you, WeSee. Thank you so much. So I thought that was very interesting because for David Ellison, it is a must have at any price. So I thought that was a really, Tracy Ann, hey Tracy Ann. So I thought that was a really interesting way to phrase it. And I have to tell you, I understand. We're going to talk about why Netflix said no, but this isn't great for Netflix either. This is not great. But they're saying that's the distinction. They're like, we don't need it, but David Ellison does. And he has paid it, and it really was at any price. Then Warner Brothers, David Ellison, he's trying to make everybody feel okay about this. Somebody sent me an article right before this live stream about how David Ellison had a town hall today. And he's like, we're the envy of everyone in Hollywood. And you're like, you are, David. You are, because you're going to make hundreds of millions of dollars off of this. And most of them are going to get fired, the people he's talking to. So pretty crazy, Zazzy. But he also, there was a leaked call that says the deal may not close. And if it doesn't close, we get $7 billion and we get back to work. Being bought by somebody else. There's some speculation that Netflix might come in later if this doesn't go through. I would think Netflix is done with this. But, we'll see. I mean, people always thought that a Comcast would come back, and that, it didn't materialize. But I think those are two really interesting quotes. Okay, it is very Succession-y. Real life Succession. People are throwing out this great Succession quote where Logan Roy said, "Congrats on saying the biggest number." And that is very much what has happened. Okay, although David Ellison had to go to his daddy and say, "Daddy, give me a bigger number." And his daddy did. Okay. So is this a done deal? Well, interestingly enough, David Zaslav has speculated that it'll take 6 to 12 months to be approved. So you're going to have Warner Brothers in a bit of a holding pattern for a year. Not great, so that's kind of tough. Now, it's interesting that he says 6 to 12 months, because in 6 months, if it takes longer, the ticking clock fee will kick in. And remember, the Ellisons, to get this deal, said that they will pay 25 cents every quarter per share, which is $650 million. Therefore, that's how many shares there are. If the deal is not approved starting September 2026. So if it takes longer than 6 months, it's going to be costing the Ellisons $650 million every quarter if it does. Trump and the GOP. They're going to ram this thing through so fast it'll make your head spin. I think it won't even take 6 months. You want to know why? Well, you know what? I also think the reason they were willing to say September 2026 is because, do you know what happens a little bit right after September 2026? The midterm elections here in the United States. That's right, Adam Sphere. And they're going to want CNN fully operational by that time period. So it's going to just go so fast, you're not going to believe it. I think I wouldn't be surprised if like in a month they're like, approved. So it's going to go real fast. So Trump and the GOP have made it very clear that this is the side they're on, and they're going to push it through. I mean, Trump and his administration have already made it crystal clear that they don't care about laws and the way things are supposed to be done, right? Trump feels he has a magic wand, which is a Sharpie where he signs stuff. And he's going to sign this real fast. So you might have seen a number of Democrats yesterday evening saying, we're going to investigate the crap out of you. I think, as I told you just the other day, Chuck Schumer was like, save your emails. We're going to go through your emails, David. And I think David probably just chuckled to himself and was like, knock yourself out, man. I think the Democrats will not be able to be in power. This deal will be done before there's any change in the current who's in control of the government. And all they're going to have to do, the most they can hope for, is to pull the companies apart once they're already merged. And I think that all the damage will already be done at that point. Maybe they could have a fine, I don't know what the Democrats can really do about this. I think they might just be stuck. Let's see. And also, again, as I've said, they investigate a lot of stuff. I ain't seen nothing ever come of it. Certainly not in the last couple of years. So I don't think they're going to do anything. Now, what about Europe and global regulators? Well, here's the thing. Netflix was a global company. Paramount, not so much. So I don't really know how much control Europe and, global regulators can necessarily have, right? I mean, they were very upset about tariffs, and yet while there's been some progress on that front, tariffs still exist. Trump still has his board of peace, so I'm not quite sure what Europe is going to be able to do about this. I'm sure they're not happy about it, but I really, I think that one of the most interesting things, and the Democrats say that they're going to learn from Trump. But it's like, well, I'll believe it when I see it. But I mean, no matter what you think of the Trump administration and his supporters, which include a lot of very wealthy men, Larry Ellison, Elon Musk, Oh yeah, I didn't include HBO in here. You can ask me about that in the Q&A. But they're extremely effective. Extremely effective. And more effective than I think we've seen in a very long time. Mamdani's pretty effective here in New York. He's getting a lot done. So I think although I think that, Mamdani was at the White House yesterday. He got to meet with Trump, and Ted Sarandos of Netflix couldn't get in the room. And Mamdani, I think, is a very similar politician to Donald Trump. In many ways, I think there are a lot of similarities there, and he's proving to be extremely effective. I think the Democrats need more very shrewd politicians. One of the problems of having all these establishment Democrats who are like in their 80s, 70s, 80s, and 90s is that they still want to do things the way they used to be done. And they're just not doing a very good job of it. So yeah, I think this is going to happen. I think it's going to happen, and I think it's going to happen so fast it's going to make everyone's head spin. All right, so that's done deal. Now let's talk about mass panic. I feel like Ghostbusters. Mass panic, cats and dogs living together. That quote from Ghostbusters? That's very much what it feels like. Okay? All right, so here we go. Mass panic. Oh, there's a lot of categories here. Okay. So I was sitting in the press room for Hoppers last night. In fact, it was at Disney's new offices, the Bob Iger building, downtown, near the entrance to the Holland Tunnel, interestingly enough. It's a beautiful building, hardly Disney branded at all, which I always find interesting every time I walk in there. I'm like, wow, for a company that has such strong branding, this has very little Disney branding when you walk inside. But we were all sitting there, and I have to tell you, the room erupted in gasps and murmurs when this news broke. People were just absolutely shocked. It was similar to a lot of people's reactions, of course, when it was announced that Trump won the first time. And then when he won the second time, people were like, what? It was the same kind of reaction. How can this be? Is this the timeline that we really live in? What is happening? Oh, hey, Lila, thank you. It was really, everybody was kind of shocked. There were some laughs, because what can you do but laugh? It was a very I'll never forget the experience of hearing that news hit people all at the same time. It was very, very interesting. I mean, I was in a press screening for a Disney Pixar movie in New York City. So, it was a very specific crowd of entertainment journalists. But it was very interesting. It was a very interesting reaction. I'll never forget it. Okay. So I think one of the things people are worried about, Trump's picture is still up here for a reason, is Hollywood going conservative? Conservatives have been pretty upset for a while now that they don't have any sway in pop culture and that they don't seem to be able to participate in pop culture. You've seen, I was talking about right-wing toxic channels at the beginning of this live stream. That's become quite a big thing, particularly here on YouTube. Nobody knows, nobody's ever dug into the numbers. It was a lot of right-wing podcasters. It was revealed they were being funded by Russia, right? Nobody knows where the views are coming from and stuff like that. But it does seem to be, it's weird because we'll talk about it a little bit later, but when they release really conservative content into a space where there's like streaming shows or movies, they don't do that great. Mex says they got into your media and your games. Well, I think that, they're buying their way in. Elon Musk was tired of how he was being treated on Twitter, so he bought it. And I think conservatives are tired of how they're being pushed out of popular culture, so they bought it. And so there's some question as to whether or not this is what's going to happen. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in the David Ellison section. But I think there's some concern. That's always been something the Democrats have been able to rely on. And now they're concerned that they might have lost, which was a big advantage to them. Hollywood has always historically been pretty, back during the McCarthy era, actually, John Wayne and Hedda Hopper, interestingly enough, were mass conservatives, to the point that they actually were going around, go watch the movie Trumbo, about Dalton Trumbo, the screenwriter, with Bryan C. Cranston. That's very interesting. But, there used to be some conservatives in Hollywood, but for the last couple of decades, it's been overwhelmingly Democratic. And, I think that, it's interesting, a little history for you, particularly if you're not an American. Back during, I think, when George W. Bush was president, I think it was, Karl Rove had the idea of getting rid of maybe it was actually even earlier. If you watch the Vice movie about Dick Cheney, the rise of Dick Cheney, they'll talk to you. They sneak this in. But the the Republicans were very smart to get rid of the fairness doctrine. That's not the equal time doctrine. The fairness doctrine here was that you had to give equal time to different opposing opinions on the news. So they got rid of it. And so that was what allowed Fox News to exist. It only presents one side of the argument, only the mass conservative, the super conservative side. And that has greatly benefited Republicans. And so there's some concern that, what they were as effective and what they were able to do with news. But, it's during Reagan era. Thank you, Dancing Dog 60. I think Karl Rove came up with that idea. And he, of course, helped get George W. Bush into the White House. And George W. Bush, by the way, I'm getting distracted. But George W. Bush, he was kind of like a Trojan horse for like Nixon 2.0, interestingly enough, and brought in like all of Nixon's people back into the White House. How do we let that happen? I gotta tell you, for the liberal press, as much as the liberal press complains, they sure miss a lot of stuff while they're complaining about like other things. It's like, why didn't you guys bring that up and be like, hey, look, it's it's Nixon's entire administration. What? Okay, so anyway, I think people are very, very concerned. I don't think that most of the world is conservative, Madab. I think most of the world is moderate. It's always a fight for the moderates. There's super conservatives and super liberals, but the majority of the world is moderate, and they go both ways a little bit. I think people are both ways on different topics. But the middle ground is where it's really at. But they're the quietest, which is why sometimes it's hard to recognize that. So people are very worried that Hollywood is going to go that way. People are also concerned about Saudi Arabia, man. Saudi Arabia. Trump sure loves Saudi Arabia. He's making so much money. I think he's made like $1 billion. I think he's made more than that in 1 year of being president. Because, he's not going for re-election. So he's swinging for the fences. And he's just making just a ton of money. So people have some concern about Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia now owns CNN and CBS News. And they killed a journalist. So that's kind of hard to look the other way on, right? So they're part of this deal, 24 billion comes from Saudi Arabia. Also, they're saying that Rush Hour 4 will film partially in Saudi Arabia. So people are like, I don't know about that. It's the same concern about Disney, by the way. Disney's in on this too, building a park in Abu Dhabi and stuff like that, I believe. And people are like, well, there's a lot of people in Hollywood who are very progressive, right? Women, LGBTQ, people of color. I don't know about the people of color situation, but I know that for women in the LGBTQ community, it's pretty tough in the Middle East, it's not great. And Saudi Arabia is certainly one of the least progressive countries, I don't really know. I think, people are like, how are we going to go and work on these projects for our company to a place that's, it's the same problem, interestingly enough, that a lot of people felt when Disney wanted to send their employees to Florida. But this is like a gabillion times worse. So it's like, I don't think that we can go there and work on these things. But if more and more of the company is going to be over there, what does that mean for people's careers? So that's very scary. Then people are very worried about how powerful is Barry Weiss going to get. Right? This woman's already just completely destroyed CBS News. Hasn't even been a year. And now it looks like she's going to get CNN. So remember, I don't know if you've heard of this judge. There's this judge named like something, I think, Cannon in Florida. This lady doesn't even pretend to be honest or middle of the ground. She is just an extension of Donald Trump. Like to the point where you're like, how are you still on the bench? a number of his Supreme Court appointees are still kind of basically doing their job. But this woman is just like this judge in Florida. It's just ridiculous. Okay. So Barry Weiss is like that. Okay. But for news. And so people are like, what? Apparently one of the divisions that had the most panic was CNN here in New York City. They were like, what? All right. Then, of course, people are also very worried about layoffs. Oh, a lot of people are going to get fired. This is going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be real bad. So why are there going to be so many layoffs? Well, after this buying spree, the Ellisons are going to have over $100 million in debt because they've had to borrow and they've just promised so much money. They're paying so many things for Warner Brothers. David Ellison, through his father in Saudi Arabia, and remember, for a little bit, Jared Kushner was a part of this deal. Ivanka Trump's husband, whose father went to jail, by the way. Trump's son-in-law. He used to be a part of this deal. He might get back in, maybe. So it's $100 billion of debt. Are you sure? I don't think it's $100 billion. Let me check my notes. I don't know I think once you're in $100 billion of debt, they just say, forget it. Because you could never pay that off. It's like when you go to the hospital and you're like, I've heard people do that. They go and they say, how much am I going to have to pay on this? And they're like, I heard someone say that, and they were like, you ain't never going to be able to pay this. Just forget it. Let's see here. Just give me a second. It is billion. Oh my God. That's right. It's billion. Oh my God. It's $100 billion in debt. So you know what that means? Ellison's got to start saving money right away. And that means, remember how Zazie was cutting a lot of stuff and firing people and, getting rid of stuff and making these ridiculous deals. Like, you're like, why am I watching DC stuff on Prime Video? Because Zazie needed to close that debt. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, I mean, like, Zazie got rid of a good amount of the debt. And so they said, like, Ellison needs to save $16 billion right away. So he's going to do it largely by firing people. Also, how did Larry Ellison get so rich? I'll tell you how he got so rich. Technology. Oracle, again, the company that none of us knows what it does, something with Windows. Okay. I don't understand Windows. I'm a Mac person. But they're big into tech. Big tech company. That's how they made all their money. And they love AI. And so I think that they're going to really be like, every single part of the company, they're going to be like, could AI do this? And that's a real problem. Then also people are really nervous about the shrinking of Tinseltown. Okay? What's going to happen with Hollywood, right? Like, not only, so they're very worried about lack of places to go get a deal. So right now, if you want to make a movie, you got to go shopping around Hollywood. You go to all the different studios and you say, are you interested in making my movie? Are you interested in making my movie? Sometimes there's a bidding war if a number of people are interested in making your movie. But there's less places to go as this happens. And then also, there's less people to bid. So if there's less people to bid, no, maybe you don't get as much money, because what's going to drive the price up? You have a real, are we approaching a point where you go, is Disney or Paramount going to make this? That might be what's happening. And that's very scary, I think, for a lot of people in the industry. So that's a problem. Then another issue is that Netflix and Paramount are very different. Netflix didn't have a movie distribution company. They didn't make movies like that. So, there's something like A24, but A24 doesn't have the money that the other studios do. So if you're looking to get paid, A24 ain't going to be able to do it. That's the problem. If you want to, look at the payday like the people are getting, they're getting, I got 20 million, stuff like that. That's not going to happen anymore. So yes, so Netflix could keep a lot of the Warner Brothers staff because they didn't have anybody like that. But Paramount has a bunch of overlap. They're like, oh my God, do you handle advertising for a movie in theaters? So do I. Uh-oh, we can't both stick around. So that's what's very scary. The duplication of the, it's two things that are going to overlap, and redundancy. That's right, we see. Redundancy is the real issue here. Horrible, horrible problem. And I think a question of redundancy is, what the heck is going to happen to Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdy? They've been doing a wonderful job running the film division at Warner Brothers. But David Ellison has already installed his own people, okay, into film positions at Paramount. Are they going to run two different divisions? Probably not. I mean, they don't need to do that. So I think that Mike DeLuca and Pam, they're very talented, but I think David Ellison very much believes in his own people. And people have also been talking about the fact that Warner Brothers was going to start a specialty label. They just hired some people away from Neon. Maybe those people might want to go see if they can go back to Neon, because Paramount, again, doesn't need this. So it's very scary what they might potentially do. So that's why there's mass panic. Now, another reason there's mass panic, sometimes there's mass panic because people aren't sure what's going to happen. But in this case, there's mass panic because people have a pretty good idea of what's going to happen, thanks to something that happened before, and that's the Disney Fox acquisition. This isn't our first rodeo. So let's break down what happened at Disney Fox. It ain't pretty. Okay, so 4,000 people were fired when Disney bought Fox. That's a lot of jobs. And that's just the job market being flooded. And I have to tell you, sometimes a lot of these people have to leave the industry and it's a different skill set. Hollywood doesn't have a lot of overlap. When you have to leave an industry, you lose all your connections, you lose all your experience. That makes it very hard to switch businesses. Like, what are you going to do? Right? You're like, maybe I'll go into another, and also because of AI, every industry is losing a tremendous amount of jobs. The unemployed market is just going to surge over the next year or so. So that was really bad. Now, movie theaters, they're like, don't think we're pleased with this development because it's not going to Netflix, because let's take a look, they say, at what happened with Disney Fox. In 2016, before the pandemic and before the Disney Fox merger, the two studios together released 26 theatrical releases. 26 movies hit the marketplace. Last year, 14. What? That is a tremendous drop in movies that hit theaters. And so we were just talking about this. There's like no movies came out so far this year. Less movies came out in the last quarter of 2025, which is why AMC said their attendance dropped by 10%. Holy crap. It used to be when I was growing up, not just one big movie came out a weekend, but it was often two or three. When I was growing up, and one of the things that made me a movie fan is that my parents would take me to the movies at least once a weekend, usually twice a weekend. Right? Sometimes 3 times a weekend. It was wonderful. I became a big movie fan. I fell in love with going to the theaters. I fell in love with talking about movies. It was wonderful. But not anymore. Now you're lucky to get 2 to 3 movies a month, if that. And that's like, really, you're like, I guess I could see this on a big screen. Come on, Scream. Scream looks like it's going to be actually a huge hit. Scream 7. Like a huge hit. Okay. Now let's take a look at these jobs. So when Skydance bought Paramount, they've already fired a bunch of people. Before Skydance's acquisition, Paramount had 24,500 employees. They've whittled it down to 17,600. That's more than 4,000 people fired. Oh my God. That's just a tremendous amount of people fired. Warner Brothers currently has 35,000 employees. Oh my God. Like that is going to be just it's just going to be so bad. It's just going to be really bad. Oh, I had the Disney Fox photo. Hold on. There it is. Okay. Then I'm glad I brought that up at this point because people are like, what's going to happen to the Warner Brothers brand? Nothing really happened to the Fox brand. It's really kind of gone. Occasionally you'll see it in front of a movie and be like, oh yeah. You know, the Fox lot, I believe, was sold or certainly seriously dismantled. There's talk about that Paramount doesn't need two lots. Which one are they going to keep? They're both pretty historic. It would be horrible to lose either one. Paramount lots really is that lot is extremely historic. But I've been on the Warner Brothers lot a couple of times and it's wonderful there. It's just such a beautiful lot. And who is going to need it? Who's going to buy that? Because there's dwindling numbers of studios. It's just very scary as to what could potentially happen. I mean, I was on the Fox lot prior to it being purchased, and I feel very bad that that's gone. Although I will say it was the least nice of the lots. And it was cool. The saddest thing I felt was the loss of the John McClane mural from Die Hard. I was like, I hope nobody painted over that. I believe they did. But I think the nicest lots, Disney's lot is gorgeous, obviously. But Warner Brothers is really nice and Paramount's is really nice. These are really nice lots. It's horrible to think that they would lose one. But even beyond the lots, what's going to happen to the Warner Brothers brand? Right? Like, what will there still be a Warner Brothers? Warner Brothers has very strong branding. I would argue stronger than Paramount's branding. Right? Like I mean, Ellison doesn't care. Maybe he'll stick with Warner Brothers over Paramount, right? I mean, Sherry Redstone, she didn't care about, the names. It used to be called Viacom over there. And then they just changed it all to Paramount to make it easier for the sale because of, branding. But I think people care more about the Warner Brothers brand, audiences than they do Paramount. There's some talk that they might get rid of Paramount Plus and just put everything on HBO. But I don't know. That's too much, I mean, it's kind of crazy. But we'll see what they decide to do. But I think that, I would put Warner Brothers first, and I would just put Paramount underneath. So we'll see what they decide to do. But yeah, I mean, for some reason, David Ellison's still trying to hang on to Skydance. He's like, Skydance. Like when I saw the Paramount, when you go and see Scream, it says Paramount, a Skydance Corporation. And you're like, who the F cares? Nobody really knows who Skydance is unless you're in the business. So that was kind of crazy. You're like, I mean, is he going to go like Paramount, Warner Brothers, a Skydance Corporation? It's like these like really crazy, like the kings and queens you always make fun of when they read the titles. They're like, fifth of his name. And you're like, just call it Warner Brothers, man. Nobody cares about any of this other stuff. Just call it Warner Brothers, Mega Warner Brothers, or Mega Warner Brothers. We'll see what direction they decide to go in. Okay, so as everybody tries to cope with this horrible situation, let's go over the question that's on everybody's mind, and I see a lot of people asking this once again. Why is Warner Brothers for sale? Why do we have to do this? Like, are you guys sure that we have to do this? So let's talk about why. And there's Zaz. So, Warner Brothers has tremendous debt. AT&T had debt when they bought it. Then it created even more debt. And AT&T, by the way, is making a lot of money about this as well. Because remember, AT&T is still a significant shareholder in Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, Zazie, because he was chopping left and right and making deals all over the place, many of which seemed nonsensical, and he made everybody hate him, he's whittled down the debt from $50 billion to $34 billion. So he's getting it done, but it still has tremendous debt. Then the other problem is scale. Wall Street wants these companies to grow. They must grow because not only is it what Wall Street wants, but it's to compete with bigger companies. Netflix was the one who drove all this, although I think now they might be getting surpassed. We're going to talk about Netflix next. But then, of course, Disney bought Fox so they could compete with Netflix, and now all the other studios are like, maybe we're too small. So that's another thing. None of these studios are big enough to be able to survive in the growing, because of what technology has done to the entertainment business. You got to be big. You got to be a whale if you want to survive in this pond. And that's what's happening. So neither of these companies are big enough to survive. So that's why they have to join together. Someone will probably buy Universal in the next year or so. Yeah, Sony doesn't really seem to want to play with everybody else. They're off on their own thing, being like PlayStation, we have animation, and everyone's like, oh yeah, Sony. But they don't have a huge presence, I think, like in Tinseltown. But yeah, so that's why they're selling. Somebody's got to buy it, because otherwise it would be too small. Paramount would be too small. Warner Brothers would be too small. All right, then also, money. You want to know why they're doing it? So a couple of people can make a lot of money. Now, and I have to say, I always tell you guys, I really think it's a problem that CEOs are beholden to Wall Street, not their employees, not their consumers. But because of that, oh, thanks, the other Ant-Man. Because of that, Zazie, from that perspective, is doing an amazing job. He is going to go down as one of the greatest CEOs of all time from a business perspective, because of the value that he was able to drive for Warner Brothers. A year ago, $8 to $11 a share. That's how much Warner Brothers was selling for. That was what it was valued at. It was like, here, little child, would you like a Warner Brothers share? It was nothing. You could stuff them in your pocket. Now, it's going to get sold for $31 a share. That is tremendous growth for everybody, particularly the people who have a significant number of shares, Zazie included, by the way. Remember when they said he was going to make $500 million off of this sale? Now it's even more. So Zazie's like, woohoo. So yeah, so I do, as I've said before, I think it's kind of sus that you can destroy an industry and maybe society so a couple of people can make a lot of money. But I don't know, that's what I told you. Capitalism run amok, man. I'm a fan of capitalism, but capitalism with great capitalism comes great responsibility. But we are just, there's no guardrails on this thing, largely because, the Democrats for a very long time, I get a little annoyed because I think the Democrats often try to run campaign on fear. They're like, well, let's not fix it, because if it's fixed, we can't use it to scare people into voting for us. That's what happened with abortion, with Roe v. Wade. And look at what's happening. They've left giant holes in their defense, and the GOP and capitalists are just running right through those holes. So it's tough. Joshua, welcome to the party. I'm glad you got a membership. But yeah, it's really frustrating. Yeah, they've gotten rid of the middle class. I mean, I don't know where we're headed. It's crazy. And the speed at which it's happening is shocking. It used to be that problems would arise for way down the line. You're like, a problem I'll never see. And now you're like, it could happen the next year or so. Holy crap, man. Okay. So, next question is, why did Netflix drop out? And they dropped out real fast. They had 4 days to decide what they wanted to do. And they were like, we don't need 4 days. We don't even need 24 hours. See ya. Okay, so let's bring that up. And there's Ted Sarandos in Washington, D.C. Where was he when this news broke? Word was that he was either in the White House or had just recently left, where Trump had not been willing to see him. Oh, it's bad. It's so bad. Okay. So he said, you know what? I don't want it anymore. Now, why did they drop out? I think the number one reason was stock. It's not been going great for them in the stock department. Their stock is one of their crown achievements. And as I've told you before, Netflix pays its employees in stock. They pay them a little bit, they pay them a little less, but they go, here's some stock, because their stock is just so ridiculously valuable, or has been. And so that's why when Netflix stock doesn't do well, everybody freaks out, because it's like part of their net worth over there at the company. So Trump did buy Netflix shares, but apparently he doesn't care. He's getting paid so much money. I mean, I told you, he made $1 billion so far off of 1 year of being president. I think it actually might have been more than that. So he doesn't, it's nothing to him. He just hedged his bets on that one. So yeah, Susan Rice. Maybe I hope she shouldn't have said that, man. Okay, I mean, you could say it later once the deal is done, Susan. Also, why would you tell? I don't understand why people ever tell someone they're going to come for them. I'm like, why would you do that? You'll be like, guess what I'm going to do in a month? Don't you try and stop me. Be like, shh, it's going to be a surprise. Okay. So their stock, though, ever since this deal had been tentatively made with Warner Brothers, Wall Street hasn't liked it. They're like, what are you doing, Netflix? You're not in the movie distribution business. This is not good for you. People like Netflix. Wall Street likes Netflix because it's such a simple, clean business, right? They make content, they put it on their service, people pay a monthly subscription fee, and that's what they do. So Wall Street loves that. So they don't like it when it gets complicated. And so their stock has in fact fallen quite a bit from $125 to $79. But this morning, already climbing back up. So that's one of the reasons they've decided to do it. Another problem is that they were very far from having to, like, what the space was. So they were offering $27.75 per share. And the Ellisons came in with $31. Now remember, just 25 cents a share is $650 million. So I can't do the math off the top of my head, but so think about that. 4 times $650 million is raising the share. Let me just do it. All right, that's $2.6 billion every time they raise it by $1. So he would have had to raise it like a little over $4. So times 4, that's like $10 billion. More than $10 billion. They just didn't want to pay it. It's just a ridiculous amount of money. It feels like in some ways money has lost all meaning with the numbers that we're talking about. What's it cost? $1 trillion? And he's like, let me go call my dad. Okay. Then let's bring Trump's photo back up here. The Trump administration. Trump told him that he would not approve this unless Netflix fired Susan Rice. The Trump administration, Ted Sarandos had gone back to D.C. He was there yesterday because he was trying to talk to GOP people like the Attorney General and senators and people who would need to approve this to convince them that it was a good idea. I don't think those conversations were going very well. I think they were like, we got the call that Paramount's going to get it. Sorry. And so I think that, and I also think the fact that this happened while he was in D.C. was just so embarrassing that he was like, how much torture can I take? I think maybe I should take all my money and go home. I mean, he's an extremely wealthy man and very successful. So I think that the Trump administration, behind the scenes, it's like when you talk to the mafia and they're like, well, I wouldn't do that if I were you. And when the mafia says you shouldn't do something, you shouldn't do it because it means that it's going to go real bad for you. Right? Then, blood in the water. I've seen a lot of people trying to say that this isn't so bad for Netflix. It's not horrible, but it's embarrassing. Netflix has never been embarrassed like this before. I told you at the BAFTAs, there was an actual video and they were like, hey, Ted Sarandos, what do you think of David Ellison? Keep trying to get this company. And I'll never forget. It's like when Dwayne Johnson said the hierarchy of DC is about to change. Ted Sarandos said, let him make a better offer. Oh, don't tempt fate, man. And he did. I mean, Ted Sarandos has been walking around like the deal was done. He and his colleagues were walking around the Warner Brothers lot, kicking tires and kissing babies. I mean, it was nuts. And that's really embarrassing. I think this is a good lesson for everybody going forward. Don't act like the deal is done till it's done, because then you have a bunch of pictures where you look bad. So it's not great. It's not great. And I think it's the first stumble we've ever seen for Netflix, and that's really shocking. They are going to get $2.8 billion. You know, it's the penalty for Warner Brothers saying pulling out of the deal. But Paramount's going to pay that money. So Warner Brothers doesn't have to pay it. But, you know, technically Warner Brothers is paying it. Well, even if the deal doesn't go through, I guess that's the distinction. If for some reason the Paramount deal doesn't go through, Warner Brothers still isn't responsible for this penalty. But so they're getting 2.8 billion, but as a number of people have pointed out, that's like peanuts to Netflix. That's like barely a couple of months of operational costs. They're like, okay, thanks. Stuff it in the tip jar and we'll see you later. We hate you. Okay. Now the other problem is what's going on with scale? Suddenly Netflix, which was scaring everybody else, maybe is a little small. Maybe they're going to have a little trouble competing with, you know, everybody was like, oh, Netflix and HBO is going to be way too powerful. Well, what about HBO and Paramount Plus? Does that maybe put Netflix in danger? I think that's a real concern that they have now. You know, now they have Disney, Fox, and Disney's gaining ground on them. Also, they're competing with YouTube. Thank you very much. Woohoo! And so I think that this was a chance for Netflix to stay up front, you know, ahead of the pack. And they lost it. And they're, you know, so what are they going to do? Maybe they'll buy Universal. I don't know. I'd be like, I mean, I think it's embarrassing and it's not great. And I think it's a little scary in terms of scale. I think that Netflix was sitting pretty. And I think that they've lost that. So yeah, they're not going to go away, J. Jonah Jameson. But I think that, you know, I think that Disney, Fox, and Paramount Warner Brothers are just going to be such huge studios that it's a little scary for everybody else. That's why everybody else is teaming up. They're like, we got to get bigger. How are we going to compete with these other guys? Okay, so let's talk about David Ellison. Speaking of Hollywood Titans, let's meet our newest one, David Ellison. He's like, hi, guys. Okay. My goodness. His dad did it. I can't believe it. Wow. He's like, I have the best dad. Okay. So, David Ellison, now the head of a mega studio. You know, like in like cartoons when like all the different little characters join together. What's it called? You know, when they all join to make one giant titan, right? I forget there's a term for it. Right? When like all the different groups, you know, all the little characters all combine to create one person. Like that's what you're looking at here. And so everybody in Hollywood is like, oh, what the hell is that? I think it's very scary. And he's become suddenly, if this passes, and I think it will, one of the most powerful people in Hollywood. Oh, it's a Megazord. Oh, is it a Megazord? I'm sorry. It's a Megazord. That's so funny. I can't believe the word is built into it. Oh, that's so funny. A Megazord. That's so funny. Magamount and Megazord. And that's pretty hilarious. Okay. All right. So that's amazing. So yeah. So that's what it is. That's what it is. All right. So he has a huge mega studio. I'm sure even Disney Fox is like, what the heck is that, man? Now, there's an interesting story they've been telling about him, and this gives me a little bit of hope. Recently, he and Tom Cruise got into a little bit of a fight. You know, David Ellison, up until recently, the way he's been very popular in Hollywood is that he's been paying movie stars whatever they want to make their dream movies. Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise, you know, basically that AI video that came about, those are his action figures. But with the latest Mission Impossible movie, David Ellison Tom Cruise was spending so much money that David Ellison finally said, I don't want to give you any more money. Maybe you should go look for it somewhere else. Maybe you should stop spending money, Tom. Tom Cruise got so upset that he stopped talking to David Ellison for a little bit. But I have to tell you, I appreciate a studio head that's willing to say no to talent and to other executives. I do feel that Hollywood has kind of gotten out of control in terms of being responsible. You know, I do, as you know, we all the time are like, why didn't someone say no to that person? Why did they say no? You know, apparently the head of Paramount Animation got very upset because the Paramount people pulled her in, you know, the new people for David Ellison, and they were like, your division sucks. And she was very offended, but her division did suck. So I would love to see a little more accountability in Hollywood. So maybe if David Ellison brings that about, that might be a little bit, I think maybe a silver lining here a little bit. We might be like, all that other stuff is awful, but at least someone's finally telling some people no. So I think that's pretty good. Now, unlike a lot of people who work in the movie business, which is fascinating to me, he loves movies, blockbusters in particular. He does not look down his nose at blockbusters. He thinks they're fantastic, and that is very unusual in Hollywood. I've seen some people making fun of the fact that he originally wanted to be an actor. I don't think that's silly. Most people who come to Hollywood or work in the entertainment business usually wanted to start out being an actor. I even tried to be an actor, which some people try to use against me sometimes. It's always usually the first step. But as I often tell you, there's so many other jobs in Hollywood, many of which actually are more reliable and pay better than actors for most people. So I think it would be almost impossible to meet someone in Hollywood who at one point didn't think they wanted to be an actor. Sherry Lansing, who was the first woman to run Paramount, interestingly enough, that's right, your little dog too, was an actress. Not a particularly successful one, but she was an actress. And I have to say, I think it's to David Ellison's credit that he realized he could not act. Good for him. I think it's not a good idea. I think, as I say, one of the best things I ever heard, it's a line from, The Men Who Stare at Goats, this horrible George Clooney movie, but it had a really good line in it. And it said, when you're trying to swim upstream and you feel like everything's going against you, you're in the wrong stream. When you find where you're supposed to be, things will start to fall into place. So I think it's great that David Ellison was like, man, acting is not working out for me. Even with his daddy's millions of dollars, billions, David Ellison, it wasn't going great. So kudos to him for recognizing it. I think that's great. I think that's impressive. So he said, maybe I should do something else. And now he's probably one of the most powerful, biggest figures in Hollywood ever. Now, it's also interesting. But the other thing is that a big problem with him liking movies is that he's going to want to be involved. That's a little bit of a scary thing. And we're going to talk about that when we get to DC. A lot of times people are like, I don't watch movies. Go do what you want to do. And so Talon's like, thank you. But now, this happened to Michael Eisner, by the way. Michael Eisner, everybody's so nice to Michael Eisner now. But back in the day, Disney people would get upset with Michael Eisner because he had a lot of ideas. And they weren't often very good ones. But he would be like, why don't we do this? And everybody would be like, oh my God, can you get out of here? And, I think I've seen some people try and say that about David Ellison. I don't know if that's true or not. But David Ellison is not going to just say, hey, do whatever you want to do. He's somebody who wants to sit. Bob Iger will sit in the editing room. But apparently Bob Iger has good feedback. Does he? I don't know. But pretty good. But yes, so that's an issue. So he's going to be very hands-on. He's also very conservative and alpha male. Do you know who he just hired today? Max Landis, who got canceled during the Me Too movement. And he's going to go stand next to Brett Ratner, who he's also hired. And you're like, I don't know, man. I don't know if this is, I told you, I don't know if people necessarily need to be canceled. Maybe there needs to be like a timeout period, right? But then there are some people where you're like, I think they do deserve to be canceled. Now, I forgot what Max Landis did, but I think Brett Ratner's pretty bad. I don't think Brett Ratner can be brought back, particularly because Brett Ratner did things multiple times. We're not talking about once or twice. We're talking about Brett Ratner, really, it's a pattern of behavior at this point. And Max Landis, based on some of your reactions, apparently did something pretty bad. So yeah, Max Landis has been hired back to work on a G.I. Joe movie. Apparently he's in a script off with some other writer. They're deciding who they're going to go with. But yeah. So these are the kind of hires. It's really scary stuff. Again, John Chu and Issa Rae. What are you guys doing over there? So I don't know what they're going to do. It's like pretty nuts. But so I don't know. Like on the one hand, you're like, well, if he has a conservative alpha male, maybe he'll be able to target that audience. Maybe that'll be good. But when he does hirings like this, you're like, I don't know, dude. Like, that's pretty bad. Now, I am wondering, does he really want to get embroiled in a culture war? I mean, he has to be a pretty good business person. Well, I don't know if he does or not, but I don't think it would be good for his company to become embroiled in a culture war. Why does he? I mean, look what happened to Disney. That wasn't fun for Disney. Does he want to be the opposite of Disney, where he gets into a culture war with liberals? I mean, that's going to be just as bad. I think it really hurt Disney to get into a culture war with conservatives. And I would tell David Ellison that he does not want to get into a culture war with liberals. So let's see. So let's talk about that. Now, Hollywood is extremely liberal, as is still, for the most part, the media. The media is already taking lots of swipes at David Ellison in this deal, and they're going to keep doing it. It'll never stop. It'll be the death of 1,000 cuts. He just doesn't need that, okay? I would think it would be great if Warner Brothers Paramount became like a moderate studio, and maybe, I don't know. I really like their, Sinners and Sinners and One Battle After Another are very liberal films, and I think they're very good films. So Mech says, what are liberals going to do? Well, we're going to talk about that. But so, you might have people in Hollywood refuse to work with him. If he keeps hiring people like Max Landis and Brett Ratner, even moderate Hollywood talent isn't going to want to work with him. You're like, dude, I mean, I'd love to be employed, but I don't think I can work with Max Landis. Like, who's going to work on a movie written by Max Landis? That's really bad. So that's like a really big concern. So you might have a lot of people in Hollywood being like, I can't work for this company. So that's a problem. And then also you might have the media just constantly hammering the company and hurting its public image. And they don't need that. So they have to be careful about that. Then, good luck winning any awards. As people are pointing out, the 2 Best Picture frontrunners are both from Warner Brothers this year. But you know how many Paramount movies have a nomination? 0. None. Absolutely none. So, I mean, he's just going to be DOA in the award space if he's just going to go and fight with people, and people, it's going to be really difficult. I mean, look at Landman. Landman is a great show, and it's finally starting to get some recognition. But because it's a conservative show, it's taken a very long time to get any recognition. Although it will be at the SAG Awards this weekend, or the Actors Awards as they're now called. So that's a problem. Now, I want to point out to you that blockbusters are quote-unquote 4-quadrant. As we have a fracturing of this country, there are more and more quadrants. I mean, more. It's become, it's like, I don't know, we're up to like 22 sections you got to get. But I want to make something very clear. You can't have a $1 billion movie without conservatives, but you can't have a $1 billion movie without liberals either. A $1 billion movie appeals to everyone. And they can't have this new studio become the Fox News of the entertainment business. It would seriously hurt their ability to have successful films. For instance, there are people trying to make conservative films right now. Angel Studios, Amazon's Melania movie, The Daily Wire is producing films. Jonathan Majors, I saw some of you mentioning him. Jonathan Majors just signed up for a movie there. Gina Carano made something with them. There's a couple of things that do pretty good that get our attention, but nothing's making the kind of money that other projects out of Hollywood make. So I think conservative large viewership does very well in the news and the podcast and the pundit space, and talking. But when it comes to entertainment, they do okay. Some of them, like a few things do okay. But Landman is moderate. I mean, I watch Landman. I think Landman's a great show. It's the only Taylor Sheridan show I write. I might try the Madison. I might try it. But I love Landman. I think it's a great show, and I think it's something that has very broad appeal. And I have to tell you, Landman's like not that conservative a show. It's just not that liberal, really, to be honest with you. Top Gun Maverick is a perfect example of a movie, Mystic, that was right in the middle. Everyone could enjoy Top Gun Maverick. Everyone could enjoy it, and that's why it's Tom Cruise's only $1 billion movie. So yeah, so you can't, if you want to be in the middle, that's a great place to be. It's a unique place to be, and they could make some real money in the middle. But I think if they go super conservative, they're going to find themselves, he's $100 billion in debt. I think that's going to be a problem for him. All right. He needs to cast the widest net possible. And so he has to be careful. Okay. All right. Now let's talk about, speaking of conservatives and liberals and what's at stake with the news, let's talk about CBS and CNN. All right. Okay, thank you everybody for joining me for this live stream, by the way. I see all of you who are watching, even if you're not a member. Thank you. It's so nice to see you. All right. So, CBS. Let's bring up Barry Weiss, and then I'll bring up CNN in a moment. Or I'll just bring it up now. Let's bring up CNN, and I have a nice little picture of Anderson Cooper, who we're going to talk about in a minute. All right, so as I said at the top of this live stream, midterm elections are coming up. Now, the idea is that they're going to make CNN more conservative. You know, David Ellison has said it's going to be moderate. He said he wanted to create a moderate news source, although CBS has gone pretty conservative pretty fast. But I have to say that I don't think a lot of people watch CNN anymore. CNN's viewership is pretty bad. In fact, I think CNN has less viewers than some YouTube channels. It's bad. So, and people who are conservatives, it's a weird business plan because people who are conservatives are just going to watch Fox News. I can understand the business plan of having a more moderate news service, or maybe a news service that just reports the news. But, you know, I think we're now, because you can get facts on social media, you need to have an opinion. CNN was kind of moderate. That's true. Yeah, that's a very good point, Kay Walton. Recently, it's kind of like Fox was super conservative. MSNBC, or MS Now, which is what it's now called, was the super liberal. And then CNN was supposed to be in the middle. But they're going to try and move this more to the right. And I think hopefully, you know, we'll see what it does. Okay. But yeah, so midterm elections, they're hoping to have CNN fully operational by that time period to affect the vote. I don't know if they're going to combine CBS and CNN. You know, NBC has NBC News and MS Now, but it seems to me weird to have two news divisions like this. I don't know what the point of that is. Now, Barry Weiss, that's her right there. She used to, I believe, work for CBS, and I think that's an older photo of her, but it's the best one I can find with CBS in it. It's weird that she now works at CBS and there's not a single official photo of her at CBS. She's pretty hated over there, except for the people she's bringing over herself. It's pretty bad. You know, I don't think there's a single thing you can point to that she's done that's good for CBS. And I think the worst thing is that the ratings are going down. If the ratings were going up, you would be like, well, the ratings are going up, but they're not. So the whole thing seems really stupid. You're like, you're just tanking the network. And you're not even, you know, it's just really bad. She's, you know, forget like trying to be more moderate. She really feels, as I said, she's like that judge. She's just a mouthpiece for the Trump administration. And it's just like really weird. Okay. I think they're offering some buyouts and people are taking the buyouts. Although I don't know where those people are going to go because there's less and less jobs in the news space as well. They're all going to get their own podcasts, YouTube channels. Okay. Then poor Anderson Cooper. Poor Anderson Cooper. I don't know if you saw the headline, but Anderson Cooper the other day left CNN. Left 60 Minutes. He said, I don't want to be here anymore. See ya. And he went back to retreat to CNN. Oh, but Barry Weiss followed him there. So I think there's a real question as to what's going to happen to the anchors at CNN. Also, by the way, Barry Weiss doesn't want to pay anybody. Gayle King runs the morning show over at CBS, and they're like, Barry Weiss doesn't want to pay her. So there's rumors that she's probably going to be phased out. And I think Anderson Cooper, even though he's Gloria Vanderbilt's son, I believe, and so he's like so wealthy. He comes from an extremely wealthy family. A lot of people don't realize that he's a Nepo baby. That's right, your little dog too. Yeah, he's a Vanderbilt. He's so rich. It's ridiculous. But I think he's a good news journalist. But, you know, so he'll be fine. But I think you might see them really clean out the hosts at CNN. I hope it goes better than it did for CBS. But CNN is probably, I think, the most scared right now of any Warner Brothers division. Because I think they feel it's going to happen over there at breakneck speed. You know? Like, it's going to be really tough. So we'll see what happens over there, but that's a space to look at, and I'll be interested to see what happens. I would just let Barry White stay at CBS. She's done such a horrible job. I can't believe. Although I guess a woman would fail upward, right? You're like, yay. But it's like, why wouldn't you just let somebody else try? Although they've had a lot of people coming over at CNN, and none of them have been able to fix it. Mech says Top Gun Maverick was conservative, just like Landman. Liberals think that for media to but not, I think I don't think Top Gun Maverick or Landman are. I think the point is that neither one of them is at all political, which I think is interesting. I mean, Top Gun Maverick literally has figureless villains. They don't attribute those villains to anybody. They're just villains, and that was from the first movie actually as well. So yeah, and some people are also worried, by the way, that John Oliver is going to get fired because his contract is coming to an end, and the Ellisons fired. Not only did they fire Stephen Colbert, but they're ending the Late Show. That's right, Adam Sphere. I think that's an important thing to point out. The Ellisons, by the way, bought TikTok, and I hear it's not so good over there because of it. So that's also very scary. You're like, oh, you ruined it, man. I mean, that's not a problem for me. I'm like, yes. But we'll see what happens with this. This would be a problem for me. I need a healthy movie industry because that's what I cover. So at the end of the day, I would like everything to work out because I'm in the business of covering the entertainment business. Okay. So yeah, we'll see what happens. You think Bill Maher would get pushed out? Bill Maher's, he's somewhat conservative. Okay. Now let's talk about what I know a lot of you are very curious about, DC Studios. Here we go. Let's talk about what's going on, what I think is going to happen at DC. I think it's good and bad. So let's discuss. Let me get my arrow over here in the right place so you know where I am. DC Studios. This is also going to help me add the chapter times. Okay. And there's Mr. Gunn, James Gunn. All right. James Gunn and bro culture. As I've said recently, I think that David Ellison and James Gunn are really going to get along. Two peas in a pod. They'll be like, hey, bro, bro. I think it's going to be great. I think they're really going to get along. All right? So I'm not too worried about that, at least in the beginning. Okay? So that's interesting. However, I would like to point out that you would think that David Ellison would get along with Taylor Sheridan. He did not. Why not? Because previously Taylor Sheridan had been left alone. The new people for David Ellison would not leave Taylor Sheridan alone. And it made Taylor Sheridan so upset he ran away to Universal, where they said, we'll leave you alone. Make us money. So James Gunn, I don't think is going to be left alone anymore. Zazie, I don't think Zazie reads comic books or even watches comic book movies, right? He reads spreadsheets and counts his money for entertainment. It takes a long time to count to 500 million. He's taken care of for the next few years. So Zazie didn't care about DC movies. He just let Gunn do whatever he needed to. He was like, you take care of this, buddy. You're the comic book guy. But I think David Ellison watches comic book movies, and I think David Ellison cares about them. So yes, David Ellison loves blockbusters. And I think that he's going to really take a look at the movies up close and feel that he has something to offer. So I think he's going to be intensely interested in this section of Warner Brothers. I think this is going to be a big thing for him. So that's a problem. And then I want to say that I think that while they might get along initially, performance is going to be an issue for David Ellison. He expects these things to perform. He expects, I don't think Zazie cared too much because Zazie's overarching goal has always been to sell Warner Brothers. So as long as DC's doing okay, he doesn't care. But now Ellison's in it for the long term, and he's going to want a DC that performs. So I don't think that doing better than Marvel, which is what James Gunn can say now, is going to cut it for a very long period of time. Eventually it's going to be like, dude. And that's the other thing. Deck Officer mentions Peacemaker. Outside of Superman, James Gunn has done very poorly Whether you like the way the shows were creatively is one thing, but the ratings have not been good. It's not been great. It's not, and we're going to see how Supergirl does. I mean, boy, is James Gunn got to be nervous about Supergirl's performance at this point. And I got to tell you, I don't think Supergirl's going to do great. I don't know if it's going to be I told you I think it's going to perform like Thunderbolts did, which is pretty bad. So, and I think Clayface, I don't know, I think Clayface would have been a better HBO show, like The Penguin. I don't know how Clayface is going to do as a movie, even if I love it. When I put my business hat on, I go, uh-oh. Superman, I wouldn't say Superman was a failure. Superman, I think, made its money back, and I think it certainly did better than the Marvel movies. I don't think it was an embarrassment, but he can't keep doing that. He can't keep delivering movies in that range. If I were David Ellison, I would keep James Gunn around. I think he has some good, I don't know. I liked Superman a lot. That's really saving James Gunn for me. I'm like, well, I really liked it, and I think it did okay. But I would get rid of Peter Safran. I would get in a new executive who was above James Gunn, who James Gunn had to answer to, who then answered to me. And somebody who, right now I think Peter Safran answers to James Gunn. It's like, what do you want to do, James? I'll help you make it happen. But I think that David Ellison is going to want an executive who is going to be a little bit more aggressive and is going to really, who's loyal to DC and the brand long term. I think that's what's the most important. So yes, I think there will be changes at DC. I don't think Gunn will be out necessarily. But I think that you're going to have somebody join the team is what I would suspect. Now, what I'm very concerned about is comic books. I'm really nervous about comic books. I'm worried about AI in the space. I'm worried about how many editors are they going to have. I saw a horrible story about just this morning about a video game website that had fired all of its human reviewers and was using AI to review video games, which is idiotic. But I don't even understand how they thought they could get away with that, because I believe Metacritic has removed that site from its from being counted as part of their aggregate scores. So, but it worries me about what someone might try to do in the comic book space, because comic books don't do very well. Comic books don't sell particularly well. They don't make a lot of money. The only real value they have is that they inspire movies and TV shows, which do make a lot of money, and also merchandise. Tons of merchandise, obviously. I'm sure that, the Superman and the Batman merch is considerable. And to be fair, someone said Absolute Wonder Woman is in danger. Mystic did. Absolute Wonder Woman's doing extremely well, as is Absolute Batman. And we just said the other day, you guys came up with this idea that maybe it should be an animated series for HBO. That would be wonderful. So maybe they'll come up with something like that. But I am very worried about comic books. I just don't think they're generating enough money to be taken as seriously. And that's really scary to me. Especially because they're the only ones publishing readable comics right now. I think that Marvel comics are pretty unreadable. Let's see. Ali says, for a movie like Superman to fail on a global scale is an issue. Yeah, I think that the American, they can say he doesn't stand for America, but he comes from America. I think it's difficult. Superman's always kind of struggled, but Batman was taken. Batman is the most popular and always will be, I say, as a major Batman fan. All right, now I want to next talk about Harry Potter. There's not too much to say there, but there is something very important to say. J.K. Rowling's ship just came in. Hoo boy. This is going to be great for J.K. Rowling. This is going to be huge. We'll see how everybody said they were going to boycott Scream 7. They were like, we're not going to go see that movie. Biggest Thursday night ever for the franchise. Will it be the biggest opening ever? We'll see. But man, that boycott has not materialized. It's like the opposite of a boycott. So I think that Paramount might feel emboldened to see if they could get, are they going to use J.K. Rowling to promote the new Harry Potter series? You never hear from J.K. Rowling anymore, right? You don't even hear anything from her at all. And she does have supporters like William there. And so what is David Ellison going to try and do? I think that up until now, you probably wouldn't have seen her involved that much in promoting the new show, but I think they're probably going to bring her back in. That would be my guess. So, and we'll see what happens, you know? Are you really not going to watch the new Harry Potter series? I'll be curious to see where people side on that. I mean, people are going to Scream. Scream is making so much money. I mean, maybe it'll be severely front loaded for Thursday night, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, so that's what I wanted to say about Harry Potter. Then finally, before we get to the Q&A, gaming, video games. I'm sorry I forgot to mention HBO. We'll see what happens there. That's obviously extremely valuable. Extremely valuable. All right, gaming. Hold on. Where'd my arrow go? Okay, I have a couple of things to say on this one. I think this is definitely the best thing for between Netflix and Paramount buying Warner Brothers. This is the ideal partner for gaming. Remember, Netflix valued Warner Brothers games at 0, which was ridiculous. We're like, are you nuts? I mean, even if you don't want to keep it, it's valuable in sale and the potential to sell it. So it was really weird that they didn't want to give any, Netflix didn't want to give any value to the Warner Brothers games. Everybody thought that was really bizarre. So Paramount, though, I think is a good partner for the gaming division, particularly because they're alpha bro culture, right? I mean, of course, video games are evolving and have a wider audience, but a lot of it is alpha bros. So, for instance, take a game like Mortal Kombat. I think there is a very easy partnership potentially with UFC. I mean, if they're willing to put UFC fighters at the Golden Globes, they're willing to do a lot of synergy. So I think, like, yeah, that's a good point. The legendary movie critic says, hey, Mortal Kombat 2 needs some promotion. How about it some UFC fights? And I got to be honest with you, I think that could help. I think that's potentially a good idea. I saw that Mortal Kombat had some dance. Somebody, a skating duo at the Olympics apparently did a Mortal Kombat themed routine. I mean, anything that keeps these brands, all of them, any brand, the name of the game is relevancy. So the more people talk about it, the more I think it makes a big difference. So I could see some synergy there. I could see some real synergy. So yeah, so, and also Injustice 3 has to come out at some point. And, you know, I think that would be something that would really, you know, fighting games are probably something that, you know, David Ellison's really going to like. I hope he likes Mortal Kombat 2. I'd be like, hey, you want to go see that? Now, speaking of that, they're already doing a lot of video game content, you know, adaptations over at Paramount. Halo is on Paramount Plus. That's their show. The Street Fighter movie, which called out Mortal Kombat, by the way. I'd be like, don't do that anymore. We now own that. At the Game Awards, Street Fighter, that movie is coming out, which, by the way, the person who did that was a very strong conservative podcaster, comedic podcaster, Andrew Schultz, I believe. You know, and just look at that casting. I mean, that's incredible. They're like, who should we put in this movie? I know, Andrew Schultz, and maybe he'll help it. Who knows? I've seen Andrew Schultz trying to become more moderate. You know, like I think he had Pete Buttigieg on the show, and that did very well. But yeah, you know, so they canceled the Halo show, but it still aired on there. Oh, that's right. Thank you. Sonic the Hedgehog, of course, is a Paramount movie. So Paramount has a pretty good situation. That's right. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Paramount's in a good space with gaming. So they obviously, the studio sees value there. So that's great. The only thing that's a little scary, though, is that they have that massive debt. Just absolutely huge amounts of debts with a B, as we just discussed. And I've seen some people point out that potentially they might want to sell off the gaming division to make some money. I don't think, based on what we've just discussed, they will do that. But I have to mention that people are saying it's a possibility. Hey, Dancing Dog 60, thank you. I don't think they're going to do it. I think David Ellison will see the value here. I mean, Hogwarts Legacy was a huge money driver for Warner Brothers. It made a lot of money for the studio. If they could get Batman back online, I think that would be also something that they would make a considerable amount of money for. So I think, you know, people say they want a Game of Thrones video game. I think Ellison will keep it. Finally, though, the other reason they might not sell it is who the heck would buy it? You know, people used to say maybe Microsoft would buy Warner Brothers games. But Microsoft is in turmoil, as we just discussed. This week, they got rid of Phil Spencer, the head of the Xbox. It looks like they might be sticking it in the direction of AI. It's just a real problem, I think. So I don't think there is a buyer for WB Games, to be honest with you. So I don't think they can sell it right now. So I think the best thing they can do is try to have it make money for them. And I think that they will. And I see real synergy here. I see really, really good synergy here. Okay, so let's do the Q&A, baby. Let's put the arrow where it goes. Thank you for your patience. Thank you, everybody who's joined in for this live stream. I'm having a great time, as always, talking to you guys. Let's Q&A it up. All right, let's move the Q&A to here. All right. Should I open the Q&A to subscribers? Let's just keep it here because you guys have been so patient. And I saw a lot of people gifting memberships. So let's do 10 minutes Q&A. Okay. Hey, just another guy named Harry. Okay. You guys want a poll? All right. Well, my dad really wants a poll. All right, hold on. Let me do a poll. How do you feel about this merger? Okay. Oh, no, that goes up here. Nightmare fuel. Dream come true. Then let's see what happens. And then, meh, nothing I can do about it. All right. By the way, you don't have to be a member to vote. Anyone who's watching right now, and I see all of you, almost 3,000 people, any of you can click on the poll and cast your vote. It's for anybody. Anybody can vote. All right, let me see. I got some stuff here. Oh, Dancing Dog 60, I'm glad you're enjoying the stream. So Mark says, Grace, did you hear IMAX is releasing Mel's? The Passion of the Christ. Well, I guess let's try and keep the Q&A to this subject. But I mean, that is very conservative content. I have mixed feelings about Mel Gibson. I think he's a pretty horrible person, but damn it if he's not talented. And I really enjoyed Passion of the Christ. So I would be curious in that film. As a matter of fact, if I were David Ellison, I'd try and see if I could get it. I mean, he says he wants to hire canceled people. He's going to collect canceled people like Thanos collects Infinity Rings. He's already got Brett Ratner and Max Landis. He might as well go pick up Mel Gibson. I think he would make potentially quite a bit of money off of that. HBO, does Paramount go away? Well, let's see what brand he decides to go with. Verdant, I'm sorry your question won't send. Let me see if I can see your other question. Thanks, Dakota. I'm really glad you guys are enjoying the stream. I really tried to go in depth on it. Verdant, I don't see your question. Maybe you asked it afterwards. Let's see. Britt says, wonder if talent who Warner Brothers is their home will automatically work with Paramount and how it will go for them. Oh, yeah, Margot Robbie. I think they're going to have to decide what to do. Ahmed just asked a really interesting question. So hold on. I think Margot Robbie will have to decide. Obviously, they have to finish their contracts that exist. But Ahmed just really blew my mind. Wonder Woman 3. They haven't done anything with Wonder Woman yet, and Paramount likes Gal Gadot. In fact, she has a deal for a new movie with them. So I wouldn't be surprised. Although I don't really know if anybody wants it because she was just, no matter what your political position is, she was just so horrible in Wonder Woman 2 and Snow White. Just awful. But I wouldn't be surprised if she got another Wonder Woman movie out of this. Boy, if I were her, it's like she and J.K. Rowling are like, I can't believe our luck. Gina Carano, right? I mean, these are people, who are like, get me on the phone, right? Like, although what is he going to turn the studio into if this is who's working there? Who's going to want to stand in that group? They'll be like, but wait a minute, my career is fine. Why am I standing here? That's just crazy. Wonder Woman 3, great prediction. Let's see here. Ben says this is a nightmare and nothing that can be done about it. That's true. Away says HBO Max is about to launch in the UK. Is it safe? Is it safe, to quote the Running Man? No, Marathon Man. Marathon Man. That's a great movie. Yes, because I think that HBO is so valuable. They only want to grow the brand. Let's see here. Who's distributing The Passion of the Christ Mystic? I don't believe they have a distributor. I mean, I really, 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 really would do that. I mean, I think that's just a slam dunk for David Ellison. Alex says, do you believe Ellison would have the audacity to request casting changes such as Snape's actor? No, it's already filmed. It's already been filmed. They're not going to change that. Raphael says, in the modern polarized scene, do you really think you might request casting changes going forward, but let's see. Raphael says, in the modern polarized scene, do you really think moderates have the numbers to still make any difference in anything? Yes, I think the vast majority of people are moderates. I truly believe that. But they just really don't ever say anything. But that's why these inexplicable things so often happen, where you're like, what? You know? Drago says, thank you again for the stream and putting this all together. My pleasure. Everything makes more sense, but it also doesn't look good. I'm really glad you feel I've explained it and filled in the blanks for you. Let's see here. Ben says, will he hire Joss Whedon? I think anybody who was canceled is on it. If Max Landis and Brett Ratner are hireable, anyone is hireable. Let's see here. Mark says, Paramount plus Warner Bros. Is the worst outcome for Hollywood. Paramount's last successful movie was Top Gun. Well, that's why maybe they'll keep Pam Abdi and Mike DeLuca then. Oh, Mr. Superman says, will Looney Tunes merge with Nickelodeon? That's an interesting question. And in what space, potentially? Although I don't think Looney Tunes generates nearly the revenue that Nickelodeon does. Nickelodeon is... Although now you're reminding me that they stuck Aang the Last Airbender movie on Paramount Plus. That's just... it's like, dude, do you make the wrong decision every single time it's presented to you? I mean, I'm so upset about that decision. I'm so upset about it. I hope he changes his mind. I'm so upset about that decision. But, obviously things like SpongeBob are much more valuable, I think, than the Looney Tunes IP. Hashtag says, you said in a video that Cassandra should be included in the Tangled remake. Do you think she could still be in it? Well, that has nothing to do with it. That's a Disney movie, but let's see. I think, they have to fill it out. But I think they're just going to maybe retell the first story. Because, the first film. Let's see. Your user says, what did you think of I didn't see. They had no trailers in front of my press screening for Scream. So I haven't seen the Scary Movie 6 trailer, but I'm hearing great things. I'm going to go see Scream 7 this weekend. I have some people who want to go. So I'm going to go see it again. And hopefully I'll see the trailer in front of it. Nate Turner. That's right, Dancing Dog 60. That guy was canceled a while ago. And not too much noise around that. So maybe, people remember, though. Aaron says, Sony tried to buy Warner Brothers games twice. Oh, really? I wouldn't sell it if I were Ellison. I think there's real value for him, particularly the way he likes to run things. Oh, hi to you too, Elise. That's so nice of you to say hi. Let's see here. Fahad says, in the Middle East, HBO and Paramount have different platforms, so this is going to be interesting. I hope shows like The Pit stay untouched, but oh no, The Pit is so successful. He won't touch The Pit. He won't, he's not, well, I don't know. He's not crazy, I would think, Let's see here. Box office prediction for Scream 7. It's looking like it's going to be the biggest opening ever. It might have a 5 in front of it, and that would be incredible. Let's see here. Good night. I am Jovier, if you're still there. Lloyd says, Grace, will the box office be beneficial in this new merger in terms of AKA middle American audiences? Well, I think the goal always for a big movie is to activate middle America. Movie going on the coasts is very strong. People go a lot, the biggest cities for movie going are New York, Los Angeles, and Atlanta. So the way a movie can make a lot of money is if you can get people in the middle of the country to go see it. That's how you start to break out of your usual openings. So, I think that if Paramount and Warner Brothers now are a little less political, they could increase their numbers. I think that people are tired of politics across the board. And so if you can have entertainment going back to being an escape, well, then I think there could be real value in that for Paramount, Warner Brothers. But if they decide to make political in the other direction, I think it's not going to be great for them. Mm-hmm. That is a Back to the Future ringtone, Tillman. Good ear. Mark says Lionsgate is the distributor for the Passion sequels. Oh, I'll be interested. I will try and buy it away. I did watch the Traitors finale, Alberto. I did. I enjoyed it. I tried to watch the reunion show, but God, that was awful. Okay, hashtag Pi says, I hope other studios get more progressive. I don't know. I think people have been pretty clear they don't want politics. And I mean, it's very hard to cover entertainment when it gets political. I mean, I had a horrible week. I mean, I don't shy away from those things. I don't think you can, obviously. But I do think that overall, except for awards films, entertainment is supposed to be an escape. You know, I think some things should be political, but I think some things shouldn't. And I think Top Gun Maverick and Landman are great examples. I mean, but K-pop Demon Hunters isn't really political. I do want to see representation. I do want to see entertainment reflect the people who are in the audience. And there's a lot of different people in the audience. So let's see. I don't know. I think that A24 is extremely progressive and that works well for them. But let's just see what happens. William says, just curious, what are your major concerns with the new conservative direction of everything? I just don't want to be in a culture war anymore. And also, I really don't like the divisiveness. I mean, obviously, I don't like extreme conservatives say some truly awful, scary things. And that's really scary. But I think there are a lot of moderate conservatives who are not. We used to get along. I'm a moderate, I really want to go back to a place where, where it used to be where, it wasn't the end of the world if a Republican was president, and I don't like all this fighting in the entertainment space. It's exhausting. It's horrible. I don't, it's just really bad. And it's, it's all part of the same thing, so it's largely the Russia playbook, by the way, which the Republicans are using scarily well. But and also fascism. It's horrible. It's really bad. We used to be a place where everyone agreed that that was bad stuff, and the fact that there's any group that would say that maybe not is where we are really where it's getting very scary. And I think that I hope that it's really scary. Floppy Disk Channel says, is this a win for theaters? It won't be like jazz clubs. I hope, David Ellison said he was going to release 30 movies a year. That would be great if he did. That's a very hard thing to do. Do I think TCM will continue, Dakota? That's a great question. I don't know about that. I think right now, so many creative people back that up, but maybe the Criterion channel could take over for that. Criterion's doing a really nice job in that space. Robert Osborne was a wonderful host for TCM, and they were not able to replace him effectively. And so I think because of that, TCM has lost a lot of its brand recognition. In the 30s, entertainment was escapist. What? I don't know. I don't know that much about 1930s films. 1939 is one of the most famous years for film in history. But that ushered in the 1940s. Let's see here. 1930s films are like pretty old school. They're a little hard to watch sometimes. Maybe not all of them, but the 1940s is when 1939 is when things really started to pick up. User says, Elon buying X killed normal political. Well, I think the bots and the manipulation is what's really hurt discourse. And also the losing of the fairness doctrine. That was really bad that they got rid of the fairness doctrine. Rashad said, could anyone else make a last-minute bid? No, I don't think they can. And especially because this is going to be cleared real fast. There's not going to be any time. I predict that it would be approved by, what is it, February? I bet you it's by the beginning of the summer, but it might take till the end of the summer. It's going to be cleared so fast, really, really fast. And the Democrats will investigate it and it'll go nowhere. All right. That's an hour and a half stream. We had a great time. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you on Sunday for Movie Math. We're going to be talking about Scream's box office, and then my Hoppers review will go up on Monday. All right, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.